Crunch? Well, there's something new for you. The cereal maker is unveiling Cinnadust Seasoning Blend. B&G Foods says it's great for sprinkling on ice cream to give it a sugary cinnamon kick. It'll sell for about $5.50 at Sam's Club only beginning September 1st. The company's Instagram post calls it the seasoning you never knew you needed. Deborah Rodriguez, CBS News.
Imagine buying a newspaper and discovering that the news you're reading is 6 months old. There isn't much that stays the same for 6 months, and the same thing goes for background checks. In a time when so much outdated information is being passed around, it's good to know that People G2 offers something different. At People G2, we provide today's intelligence, not yesterday's news. Our value-added approach offers you a fully FCRA-compliant solution that includes up-to-the-minute information. By combining industry-leading technology with old-school human investigation, People G2 is able to give you information that is accurate right now, delivered quickly through our online system, or integrated with your HR system. So ask yourself, are you comfortable working with old news, or are you ready for a different kind of background check company? Visit peopleg2.com or call 800-630-2880. That's 800-630-2880 or peopleg2.com.
I'm on the observation deck of the Empire State Building to demonstrate how much material Waste Management recycles. As North America's largest residential recycler, last year alone, Waste Management recycled 12.9 million tons. How much is that? Let's do the math. Carry the 6. It's enough to fill this building more than 27 times. With experience like that, we're bound to have a program that can help your business recycle. Talk to Waste Management or visit thinkgreen.com.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's time once again for another episode of Health Talks with Dr. Tran. The one show, maybe the only show, that helps you figure out fact from fiction. Add some hope to your life. Come up with some answers to those perplexing health questions that plague all of us, with the man who's abolished plague. Absolutely, he's wiped it out. Dr. Tran, how are you, sir?
Oh my. That was a lot of commercials. What was that?
Oh, that was, we're experimenting. We're running the news before here, so the news comes with a bunch of commercials here. News isn't free.
Oh, yes. Welcome, Sister Thuy.
Thank you for having me here. I don't know what I say yes to.
Yeah, so.
And then I saw your Facebook page this morning, and you're like, what did the nun and the doctor have in common? How about the jokes? I'm like, oh my gosh, he did not even prepare me.
Well, let's prepare the audience. Tell us who who Sister Thuy is. You just say, welcome, Sister Thuy, like everybody knows who she is.
I think a lot of people know me, except beside Dr. Tran's world.
All right.
His circle of people knows me. But, we finally just met a couple months ago.
So what are we going to talk about today? What's the good sister on to discuss here today?
Yeah, Dr. Tran.
I just want to tell some nun jokes.
Two nuns walk into a bar. No, I don't know.
Well, I got to just introduce myself a little bit. My name is Sister Thuy Tran. I actually work with Providence St. Joseph's Health System. And I've been a sister for 13 years. And so the past 8 years, I've been in healthcare. So from internal inside the acute care setting. And then the past 2 years, I've been out in the community with the people doing outreach and looking at population health. How do we keep the community around us healthy? So that's the work that I've been doing. But I do hands-on with our frontline caregivers, and then also out in the community to make sure that we look at equity in the communities and how are we paying attention to communities of color that might need an extra voice.
Now, come on, sister. What the heck does a nun
Oh.
have to do with any of that? Come on. I mean, this
Hey,
is not.
Paul.
Yeah,
Hey, Paul, you got to share the screen. So.
I got to share the screen. Oh yeah, let's get the sister up here. There we go.
Oh my God. I'm afraid that's what Dr. Tran's going to show.
Let's get.
No, it's a share screen of us here, basically.
Yeah, let's get her on here. Let's do that. I'm sorry. It was a long night last night. We're broadcasting from our new live headquarters here at UC Irvine, and so we were up till 2 o'clock in the morning trying to make it all work here.
Wow.
Yeah, so we're from UC Irvine, where we're Paul's sitting at UC Irvine. I'm sitting in my office in Irvine. And yes,
Nice.
there you go. I think
Let's see if we can get everybody's screen in different
Yeah.
here.
by the way, this is live also on OC Talk Radio, Twee.
Yes,
my God.
exactly. We're going out live. We're on everything here. We're on live on YouTube right now. We're on
You're
YouTube.
live on YouTube right now too. Just a few different live events.
I did not tell my religious community that I'm going on live this morning. So if I say anything wrong, I'll find out later today.
That's what confession is for.
Hey, I'm a good Irish Catholic. Don't push this toward my chair. All right, so I want to know what a nun has to do with any of these health issues here. You should be in a convent praying for all of us. What is getting out in the community have to do with it?
This is interesting facts. If you looked at Catholic healthcare in the U.S., it was actually started by nuns. And, when we think about Florence Nightingale, it's a 100 year of her birthday, right?
Yeah, right.
And she started nursing. So when you think about nurse and the nuns, we work hand in hand. And I'm just trying to figure out doctors. Well, without the doctors, we cannot move on either. So, but I think that's interesting facts that U.S. religious women have started Catholic healthcare.
People often forget, because I am Catholic and cradle to
That's why I'm
grave
here,
Catholic.
to refresh your memory.
To refresh my memory, and so many healthcare systems, the Little Sisters of St. Joseph or all these other sisters that took this upon themselves, because hospitals weren't around forever. There were no public hospitals. If you were poor, you didn't have anywhere to go. And so they started healthcare systems, which now have evolved into huge hospital chains. But in many cases, I hate to say this, the nuns have been pushed out.
Hey, Paul,
Yes.
the screen is still dark.
The screen is still dark? Why
Yes,
is
you
it-
haven't shared screen.
Why? So is it totally dark, or is it?
Yeah, it's black.
It's black. All right. Well,
But they can hear you.
they can hear us, but they can't see.
So Dr. Tran, I think what would be interesting for the viewers, I would like to know.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this morning. You're like, do we have any nun and doctors joke? And so I say, we should have the audience kind of give us the ... the doctor, the nurse, and the nun joke on the way to see a patient, and the nurse came into the patient's room
Uh-huh.
and ... So in my thinking, when you say if the nurse say to the patient, I have a nun come here to see you, that could be go two ways. They might be so excited to see the nun, or they might think that this is the end of their life.
The end of their life.
I'm taking that to heaven. And so it
Exactly.
could be one or the other way, but it'll be interesting what other people come up with.
Let me text them. Do you guys on Facebook have any doctor nun jokes? You can put it in the chat box.
I don't know any Dr. Nun jokes. I actually don't know any Dr. Nun jokes. I have to come up with one here. Why
Oh
is
my
this?
gosh.
I figured that, if you say I have a nun coming into the room, I'm taking them to heaven. And so,
So you're with the Sisters of St. Joseph, right?
yes.
Wow. What-
You would love this story. I share quite often.
Yeah.
In 1975, Dr. Tran, that was the fall of Vietnam, and my parents, they were refugees from Vietnam to the U.S. and they were sponsored by a family. It didn't work out. So the sisters of St. Joseph heard about my parents, my family's situation. So they
Right.
came to the Mojave Desert about 3 hours from here and assessed the situation. And they realized that they were in an unhealthy environment. And in the middle of the night, the two sisters, Sister Rosemary and Sister Caritas, drove out and assessed the situation. And they said, oh, no, we need to take them out of this place.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how long after that, but you know, in the middle of the night, these two sisters like kidnapped the family, my family, back to the mother house. So my parents' first home was actually with the Sisters of St. Joseph.
Oh my goodness.
And
Wow.
before I was born, and so you know, 30 years later, I end up becoming one of them. And
Wow.
so I told, you know, the sisters, sometimes it takes 30 years to see the fruit of your labor. And, you know, so here I am, a sister of St. Joseph 30 years later.
And
Oh my gosh.
30 minutes later, I finally got the picture up here. So there we go. All right. But I still don't get what a sister has to do with healthcare. I mean, other than nuns did start hospitals, does your order still work in a hospital? Is that what your
Yes,
mission is?
we're pretty engaged in healthcare. I think, you know, the health and the well-being of the communities, right? And I think that there's a lot of, we're very attentive to the poor and the vulnerable in our communities, and who's their voice, who's advocating for those that don't have access to care. And so we are very embedded in healthcare because we want to be that voice for them and to make sure that as systems, we need to make money. On the other hand, our mission is to care for the poor and the vulnerable in the community, make sure that health is for all.
So
Can I-
is St. Joseph like is it supported by the Catholic Church, or how's it affiliated? St. Joseph Hospital and then the Sisters of St.
Right.
Joseph.
That's what I was
What is
going to
that-
get at. Right.
What's the affiliation?
Well, we're one of the sponsors. So
Okay.
before the sisters manage everything, they back in the early days, right? They started healthcare, so they were the CEOs. They were like
Wow.
running the hospitals. They trained the nuns to become nurses, and so we have sisters that were in technology, radiology, and all these roles that back in the days that they did not have. St. Joseph Hospital, right in our backyard, right here in Orange. The
Yeah.
sisters built that hospital, so that shows.
Sisters built that hospital.
Yes,
Wow.
yes. So they were teaching during the day, and in the evening they were out and they went to the hospital and started, you know, shoving the hospital to build the hospital. So they're entrepreneurs and they're innovative and they care about the community and they want to serve the community.
I love it.
But later on, you know, as our religious sisters are aging, we don't have the capacity to really put in the governance, the energy to focus around the governance. So they created a system where we want to empower the lay people with the sisters sitting at the table making these decisions around governance so that it's not totally on the religious communities.
So can I ask you some tough questions? I don't want this to be a tough
If I
interview
don't
here.
have an answer, then I will say I don't have an answer.
My late mother worked in hospice. That was her calling later in life. She took that on as her own personal crusade here. And this is back in Michigan. This is 20 years ago, whatever, 30 years ago. And she's long since left the earth here. But back in Michigan, there was another St. Joseph's Hospital, again run by the Sisters of St. Joseph. And it was the biggest hospital in suburban Detroit, very well established, very well-known hospital. And my mother, the nuns who had founded the hospital had dwindled. There were only, I don't know, a dozen number or something. The order had shrunk so much that they lived in the hospital somewhere up above. The convent was in the hospital somewhere, some floor they lived in. The half a dozen nuns that were still left. but they were really relegated to just kind of walking around the halls and saying, hi, how are you, and whatnot. And the hospital really, in my mother's opinion, because she used to do hospice work there all the time, really kind of, because it became a corporation, a nonprofit corporation, and took over all the duties, and it expanded and raised more money and all the other good things that did, it took the work of the sisters further. But at the same time, it pushed the sisters further into the fringes. One, because the order had shrunk, and two, because it's a corporation now, and the nuns didn't. They kept saying, the nuns, get out of the way. You know, we're handling this. We're running the radiology department. Talk about that transition a little bit. Have we lost something in the process that the?
No, I will speak from my religious congregation. There's different levels that what you're sharing. Many of our sisters, as they're aging, I want to age like them. As they're aging up to 90 years old, they have had a career of serving the community. And when they retire, they want to be a volunteer. So they want to be present to our caregivers. They want to be present to the patients. They want to ease the way of the patients when they come. And so that's the role when you see older sisters. They want to be a prayerful presence to our healthcare providers. But on the governance side, I'm involved at Mission Hospital, for example. I come and meet with our chief executive once a month and kind of listen to him. What are we hearing? What's going on inside the hospital? And if I hear something, I reach out to him and say, I am concerned. I heard the complaints from our caregivers, and is there something that we can do to ease their way, to make sure that we're communicating, that they hear us, that we're hearing them. And so that's very important. And we have sisters that serve on boards to make sure that as we focus on the budget, that we are also focusing on the mission. And that's our role, to ensure that we balance that.
And do the hospitals listen? Because that was my mother's fear, is that as it turned into a corporation, as it was run by doctors and bean counters and accountants and whatnot, the sisters, not just because the order shrunk, not just because the hospital grew, but because the sisters were sort of excluded from those conferences. They sort of forgot what the whole purpose and there have been some criticisms of some Catholic hospitals that they sort of forgotten where they came from. They've forgotten the mission is to help and to comfort and whatnot, and now they're just a corporation out to maximize, we'll make more money because we'll open up a neonatal care and there's a lot of money in that, as opposed to this, and it's all about the dollars. And
we have merged with the Providence Health System, and they're the sponsors. So Providence Health System, they have 5 representatives, and it includes lay people and also their religious order. And we have lay people and our religious sister that represent on the to make sure that we are operationally, we are still focusing on what we're called to do. Is, are we living out the mission? And so yes, the sisters are embedded, they're involved, but we have representative, and we want to make sure that they represent us. Because
I'm an Irish Catholic, and I just have a bias towards anything that says, St. Joseph's Hospital or Mission Hospital. Is it Mission Hospital?
I want to clarify. Maybe there's a religious community that might be a Franciscan congregation, might love St. Joseph, and then they started St. Joseph Hospital. So it might not be ours. So I just want to clarify that.
But I'm just saying, I guess I always felt that there was something different about a Catholic hospital than just, I don't know, pick any other Eisenhower Hospital out in the desert. Great hospital, but it doesn't have the same. The sisters gave it some humanity. The sisters gave it some comfort and care. And my mother used to say this all the time. She said, I don't know why they don't use the sisters more. Because she said, my mother worked in emergency a lot. They would bring her in, and because the doctor's real busy, and there's a gunshot wound, and he's dying, and somebody go talk to this couple. They're grieving out there. We're in here trying to save the patient. And she said a nun would walk in the room. I don't care what faith you were, if you had no faith. A nun walked in a room, particularly the old nuns with the habits, They walked in the room, and oh my goodness, everybody felt at ease.
And Paul and Dr. Tran does not treat me the same. He because I don't wear a habit, so he like.
You're not in the habit of wearing a habit, right? Yeah.
I will be honest with you. So during this COVID time, I live in the local community, and I have asked my religious congregation to allow me to move out. And part of it being with our caregivers, they are anxious with the virus, and they don't know if they're going to bring it home to their families and
Oh,
who are vulnerable within their surrounding circles. And so what I have done, on a weekly basis, is I go around and I bless the caregivers. And I think that's the beauty about being in a Catholic healthcare system, is that we embrace this. We embrace prayer. We
right.
embrace praying over our caregivers. And I'm very intentional. And then when they see me walking around and being present to them, they're so moved that if there's an end of life situation with a family, they're like, Sister Thuy, can you come into this patient's room and pray over the patient? But I
Yeah.
think one thing I want to,
Even if you're not Catholic, even if you're not a religious person, there's a certain moment, oh my God, I didn't think I believed in God, but I'll take everything I can use right now here.
the
Yeah.
part of it is a partnership with the lay people. That the people that I serve with in our ministry is empowering our nurses and our doctors that for them to feel comfortable and to like be that mission, because all of us are living that mission of our organization, is that healing ministry of Jesus. So if we all own it, not just me, but for me, I think it's very important is that witness factor. How am I visible to really empower our community, so that they can see themselves doing it, that they don't need me. Yet sometimes it's that empowerment, just being present and empowering them to. Uh,
So let's ask your audience this morning here. Our first question of the day is: would you feel better at any religious house? And there are other Catholics are probably run the biggest system, but there are Methodist hospitals, Lutheran hospitals, Seventh-day Adventist hospital. Isn't Loma Linda Seventh-day Adventist hospital?
Yes, they are.
A lot of these hospitals were started by religious groups. It makes sense. People are sick. People are dying potentially. Why not bring in a religious aspect into it? So would you feel, audience, better at a religiously affiliated hospital? Would you feel safer? Would you feel more cared for? Would you rather go, or doesn't it matter? If the doctor's there, you don't care what
I will
goes
be
on.
honest with you. I've been following Dr. Tran, and he's Catholic, but he works.
I am.
He's a Catholic like me. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he works the memorial, and yet his presence. He does not need to say it, but he's bringing God presence to the people, and we have to trust that. Like wherever we are at, we are representing Christ. We're representing God presence.
We're here to help. Sir, Dr. Tran, talk about this. You're in the medical profession. You deal with all these doctors at Memorial Care and other places. I don't know that most doctors are religious. I really don't know the answer to that, but my gut tells me they're scientists. Baloney, that religion stuff. Show me the facts, and where.
You know what's missing in healthcare?
What? That's what I'm getting at.
What's missing in healthcare often is the realization that to have total health, it's not just an organ and a body. Total healthcare includes body, mind, and spirit. And and when we realize that, we are not fully complete, are not fully whole by just focusing on an organ or a lab result or an X-ray result, right?
Mm-hmm.
Total healthcare includes the body, mind, and spirit, and I think that's so important, and that's missing and forgotten sometimes. Sometimes a lot of patients come in to me and in the office, and the most valuable thing, that they get out of it, and I'll tell you a story here. I had a
Okay,
patient.
we love stories.
I love stories, right? I had a patient. Oh, we have some nice comments on here. Vivian says it's nice to have somebody pray with you, especially during pre-op.
Yeah.
Nancy says, God bless all the nuns that passed on away from COVID in Michigan and New Jersey.
Yes.
Thanks for moving out. I totally understand your thinking. I'm a proud Catholic. We got a good number of proud Catholics on our chat
Well,
group.
good. We don't talk up to Catholics are kind of, we don't say anything. We're not evangelicals. We're not out,
I'm empowering you all to like speak.
Yeah.
Can you do a blessing like over the online?
Yeah.
Well, I will do it at the end. Just
Maybe.
Do it at the end because we have a new studio we're coming from here too, and this is going to sound.
I'll bless it at the end. It's too bad I don't have holy water.
Well, I'm gonna show you something here that now everybody's gonna laugh, and
Sister Thuy gonna do the blessing, and I'm gonna do the exorcism.
All right, watch this. Look what I actually have here.
Okay.
Holy water.
I got a little bit from our church here because I was going to bless our studio. I know this sounds silly or stupid to so many people, but I don't know. I'm just old
Hold
school.
on, I have something to show you.
Okay.
I'm old school here. I just love this. Oh, look at this. Oh, cool. Extra.
That's what you guys need.
Extra holy.
I need some of that, boy. I don't need the regular holy. I need extra holy right there.
Everybody needs it, Well, people are sanitizing. I like sanitize with holy water.
How cool is that? I love it.
Can I add my keto supplements to it? So
Right.
Ketogenic stuff on here.
But I agree with Dr. Tran regarding yes, we have to embrace science and what it offers is science.
And the two are not in conflict. I mean, the Catholic Church for a long time has come to we're not killing Galileo because he's showing the holes on the moon anymore here. We're not trying to shut down. So I don't think the Catholic Church and most churches, I don't think, are anti-science that people assume. Yeah.
One of the things when I moved into healthcare about not long ago, but long enough, I was involved with the palliative care program.
Yes, right.
Really journey with people at end of life.
Palliative meaning it's an old Greek word, or I think, and it means to comfort or take care of, or.
It's right before hospice, and
right.
So when they're in this transition, for me, it's a gift of that transition because during this time, when I am invited to that space with the family, is it the patient that needs healing? And sometimes it's the healing with their relationship with God. They're at the end of life. Mm-hmm. And so is it what's going on inside of them? Is it their relationship with God? Is it the relationship with their loved ones? Is it their family that's in chaos? It's not them, but it's the family.
Yeah.
So then
right.
when you walk in, you're able to really pray with them and accompany them during this transition so that whoever it is, they really die a good death, that they're able to
die a good death. Boy, that's what we all hope for.
Death.
I like that.
Is that the samurai where they kill themselves?
Die a good, honorable death.
Like, or different. Okay,
that's totally different. We don't do that stuff. No, in all seriousness, I think that is the line. That's the connection between science and religion. Religion picks up where science ends. We can't figure out at some point how to save you. We don't know what happens to you when you die. We have no answers. Science has no answer for some of those perplexing questions here. So at some point, the doctor says, I've done everything I can. Now you're going to go through this process, and I don't understand it any more than you, and I don't know what comes next. Maybe nothing, maybe something. And that's where the religious comes in and picks up where science can no longer explain.
So there was this elder lady. She passed away, and this was a few years ago. She was in her 80s, and she had lung cancer, and she went through treatment. And doctors were at the end. They said there's nothing else we can do. We've hit our plateau.
Right.
And we are going to need to put you on hospice. So she searched me out, and so finally,
And just to make sure, when you go on hospice, at that moment you stop seeing a doctor. You're done. The doctor doesn't come in anymore. They might monitor you, but the idea of trying to try everything to save you is over. We're accepting that this is the end, and the doctor releases you from his care. He might still supervise it or be involved, but he's not actively trying to find a cure anymore here.
yeah. So she came to me and she says, "Sister Thuy, I am so afraid to die, and I don't know what to do. And
I'm
I have
afraid to
been
die."
away from God for a long time."
Yeah.
And so she's in her 80s, and how do you accompany? And the first thing I said, "You are God's beloved because I love you and God loves you so much more. And what I can commit to is that I'm gonna journey with you every single day until you can no longer receive my phone call." So every night I will call her, and at that time she was living alone. So every night I will call her and say a prayer with her. And towards the end, she wrote a letter to our hospital, and she said, "When I met Sister Thuy, I was very broken, and at this moment, my heart is healed, and I'm ready to be with God." She
Wow.
passed away peacefully.
Wow.
Wow.
Well, that we could all find a way to improve our relationship with God, with whatever we view comes next, and with the people around us. This is the end. You got to say goodbye. There's a lot of things to be left and said, and too many people die with so many things left unsaid or unfinished or undone.
But yeah, and part of it is what helps the people. They need to search for that. So that spirituality is so important. Maybe it's meditation. Maybe just going outside and enjoy the nature, going to the ocean, really see the sunset or the sunrise, whatever connects them to their own spiritual like healing.
Right.
I think that is so important. You don't need to really go to inside a church if that's like brings them bad memories or something like that. Go somewhere that brings that healing to them, where they feel most of God's presence, that will
We
heal
have
them.
a show on the network that I was a little hesitant to run because it's not our typical business show or even community show like this one, but it's called Church Hurts. And it's by a former evangelical minister. And he says, we've all got to realize that church, in whatever form, many of us have had a bad experience. Certainly in the Catholic Church, abuse and all this other crazy stuff I still can't wrap my head around. Or just were driven away or driven to feel that you don't belong, or driven to feel that you were different and you couldn't be saved or you're a sin. We've all had, somehow church has not been a helpful, healing thing for so many of us, and it's driven so many away from church. And how do you find consolation? How
And
do you
you know
find?
what? We have so many good people as well,
Yeah.
and we have to trust that. When I look at Dr. Tran out in the community, serving, doing his mission work, he that visibility, that there are good people, especially during COVID. I reach out. There's 90% of the people I did not know, and I believe that's church. When it takes a whole village to help one center to get all of the things they need, the PPE, the expertise, whatever that we needed. And so I believe in seeing the goodness in the people that represent in the church as well.
So let me ask another hard question. See if we can get a response. See if we can get the group riled up this morning here. I maintain that there used to be two choices. You either believe in God or you don't believe in God. You're either religious or you're agnostic or atheistic, whichever you want to say. But there's a third group, and it's a growing group. The group that says, I don't care. You might as well be talking about the fifth dimension. There might be a fifth dimension. There might be, I don't know. It has nothing to do with me. I'm not interested in the question even anymore. This growing group of people that don't say I don't believe. They don't say I don't care.
Yeah, yeah. That's where faith comes in. How we nurture our faith, and if we, and for me, what I believe it's their journey. And if they're at that point, there's some pain that's going on. In my experience, people that have lost their parents due to cancer, they blame God.
Yeah. Oh,
You
right. Yeah.
know,
Why me? Right.
yeah, what I mean, and something bad happened to them.
Why
And
not
so,
you? Why do you want somebody else? Who else? If not you, then who else? Who point out who else should get this
and,
problem?
because we say that God created us, so why would God ever hurt me? Why would God ever do this to me? So the scapegoat is God. But for me, it's like cancer. It's the DNA, like if you look at science,
Yeah.
and so part of it is the cultivating of faith. But when it stops, they will come back at a time when you don't know. It says accompany them, be with them, journey with them, and you never know. You never know when that day happens. Like that woman, she had been away from the church because the her pastor said that you got to go to hell because you have sinned,
Yeah.
and so
Right.
that's her childhood, and so ever since then she like did not want to go to church,
Right.
or because she felt that she's got to go to hell.
Right. Or you're gay, you can't belong, or you're this, or whatever. You all these things that are excluded. So I guess the question to your community listening today is: do you still have faith in anything? Because faith we seem to have lost our faith in anything. We've lost our faith in government. We lost our faith in mankind. Almost, we've lost our faith in faith. We don't seem to have faith in much anymore. Have we lost our faith? Do all of you still have some faith of some kind?
I think the Dr. Tran can kind of elaborate this when he hears the people that have suffered from the Vietnam War. They left with nothing, and just went on the boat blindly and not knowing if they're gonna really get to the other side, if they're gonna survive. But they risk everything to like go, leave the country. And I believe many of them continue to hold on to their faith that God, if they're meant to survive, God will help them and their families.
I agree, and that's the immigrant's journey. That's to me what gives America such strength. It is we're to make America great isn't to get rid of immigrants. It's to immigrants are what built this country, and immigrants are what feed that dream, even if it is just a dream that we're all equal and free and opportunity and all that. Immigrants come feeding that dream. Immigrants come filled with faith, and most immigrant communities hold on to their faith. It's the second and third generation when they become Americanized that they go, my daughter, she doesn't go to church. I raised her to go to church all the time. She's like, Dad. I'm like, why don't you go to Dad? I don't even want to talk about it. I don't say I don't believe. I just don't care to talk about it. It's not even an.
What's been interesting, I have heard from parents that during this time, and I think it's an opportunity that our listeners should really like take advantage of. During this time, the kids are stuck at home, and so they cannot go out. And parents have taken advantage to eat dinner together, be a family together. And then I say, you know what? Start dinner with a prayer, and check in with your kids, see that how they are socially, and with courage. When if you're confident in yourself, you're able to bring up that faith question. But families that I've heard, they say, our kids normally they don't pray, but because of COVID and they're eating dinner, and so they invite them to pray, and they pray.
I know very few true atheists.
Yeah, well,
There are a lot of folks who are agnostics, and they know there's something. I think, and I pray with patients quite often. Those who are interested in prayer, because I believe, and I tell this to those in the ministry all the time. What I do as a physician, I can extend your life maybe a few extra years, right? I can get you from maybe 75 to 80, maybe from 80 to 85. I can extend your life a few extra years. So what I can do can affect you physically for a few years. But from a spiritual perspective, what you can do, what Sister Thuy can do, what a pastor or a minister or, can do, can affect someone eternally. Because I believe that life goes beyond death. And so, to someone who's in the work of ministry, your work is so much more important than the work of a physician who's going to extend your life for a few years.
Yeah, right.
And healing isn't just physical healing, right? It's so much more important, guys, for us to improve your lab results, your cholesterol level, whatever it is, right? It's so much more important to have that emotional and spiritual healing.
Look at some of the comments though in your thing here. When I asked that out, a few people said yes, I believe in God, but a lot of people said, I believe in good. Well, okay, that's good, and I believe in myself, and we're all taught that's an American virtue and a positive virtue. Yes. I applaud all of that, but I have to believe there's something greater than me, or I couldn't go on. That's just me. If we're just ants and we're mindlessly going on, and then at the end we get stepped on and it's over, then step on it now and get it over with. Somehow I got to feel like.
Why do we even exist, right? What is our purpose?
Right.
Well, I think to know our vocation is very important.
Yes.
Why we minister is to serve. We're called, if we truly know our purpose, why we're called to do what we do, then we call and we serve it with joy, because there's a purpose. Like Dr. Tran, he's a doctor, but he's called to be a doctor, and he served that. And like you, Paul, you're doing radio.
I'm a talker. He's a healer, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm here to heal both of you.
We need it, sister.
Extra holy.
I need that extra holy. So what called you to be a nun? Because will there be nuns in my grandson? My grandson's 5. Will he know what a nun is when he grows up? Because I wonder if that whole idea of being in selfless service to others, poverty, chastity, charity, all those things that nuns take on, that seems so passé, so old school, so out of vogue, so unpopular. And the numbers prove it. The nuns are declining rapidly in numbers who are aging.
Yeah, but it was a time in the history where there was a rapid religious entrance. But you look now, I'm part of an organization, they're called Giving Voice. And so you look up Giving Voice Sisters, and we're nationally Sisters Under 50. And the changes of the sisters are changing. We're women from different ethnicities that are entering the religious community. And so women are still responding to the call. It's not the same way that we used to have this influx of sisters that enter. But when you think about the early foundations of these religious communities, there were very few of them.
Yes, right. There were a handful of followers of whoever, the nuns.
Yeah. Jesus had 12, and he had a bunch of followers. And so,
right, yeah.
Jesus only had 12.
I think he had 12, when he started with last time. And he lost one. He lost one quickly here.
Yeah, but we had to trust in the people. For me, how are we a witness of the gospel to those that we serve? And do we serve it with joy and humility?
So talk about your journey, your calling. Were your parents excited? Let me back up. In most Catholic families were large because we didn't believe in birth control, so we had 5, 6, 7, 8 kids. Irish Catholic, Vietnamese, whatnot. That doesn't happen anymore. But and so the idea was you almost gave one to God. Here I got 6 kids. All right, you Sally, you Joey. I'm going to give one to God. Thanks.
I always thought that I got to marry. I always thought that I would marry somebody that I love, that I can sacrifice my life. Humanly, right?
Right.
The blessing for me at a young age, since I was in my teens, I started going on silent retreats. And that's the time that I really intentionally, it was just a weekend and then 4 days, 5 days, and then it became a whole week of total silence with God. How do we listen to God? How do we know that God is like speaking to us in this silent, sacred silence?
And
It's
that's
hard
hard because I so many times I envy evangelicals and say, well, God spoke to me last night. I don't know that God's ever spoken to me. I've listened, I've asked, but I don't know that I've heard the little, you try and get a feeling, you try and discern, you try and say, am I on the right path here?
so I was I loved somebody for a long time, and one day I saw that he was in love with somebody else.
Ooh.
And that at that time I told God, I said, I've always imagined this person would be my husband one day, but obviously he's in love with somebody else. And so I'm open to be married. I am open to be a religious sister, and I'm open to being single, so wherever you want. And so I went on the 7 days of silence and allow myself to be very open to the gospel, because that that is God's word, sacred words, right? And really allow God to like um, guide me and listen to the Spirit leading me to hear. So during the retreat, I heard God's calling. I was freaking out because
Yeah, right. No,
because I have all these dreams.
what's it like? Is it a voice in the darkness that speaks that says Twee, this is there's a burning bush in the corner or something
Well,
here?
the thing is, for me, the best description is when you're in love with somebody. When you're in love with somebody, your heart speaks, and your heart like moves you the way that you never imagined it to move. And so, how do you know that you're in love with somebody? Your heart
Yeah,
tells you
right.
that you're in love with somebody. And so, for me, that love from God was so strong, as if I had fallen in love with somebody,
Wow.
that I was willing to really move my life. Because for me, I have plans. I have plans of how I want to see my future. I have like set up.
Right.
I have. I want power. I want prestige, and God is calling me to a whole different life where I'm like, oh no.
No prestige, no money there. Yeah, right. You're not
and
gonna.
and and not, I did not know many religious, in the sense that my friends were not religious. So
No.
to enter into this journey blindly, so I when I felt the calling, and I said, I think part of it for me, because I've fallen in love before I entered the community. And there's a difference when the guys that I have been in relationship with, it was more of how are they going to make me happy,
Mm.
and it was just for me to make me happy. And when I felt God's love, I became selfless. And that's the calling, when we become selfless, of listen to this call that we want to give ourselves for the other, to
And
the
isn't
others. And
true
so,
love in any relationship selfless?
yeah,
If you even a husband and wife or a couple or
yeah.
two people of any kind, that if you really think more of them than yourself, that's really love. Somebody
You
told me.
nurture, yeah, you nurture each other, because when you feel this love that is so immense, that you want to give this love to the others. And so for me, when I feel this love is so immense, that I want to give this love to the people. And so I've chosen that call to really give it to the poor and the vulnerable, people that have no choice, people that are homeless, that they lack. And so during this time, a lot of our seniors, they're vulnerable, they're elderly, they don't have any connection, that human
They're
connection.
alone. We've talked about this before. They're
Exactly.
alone.
So
Yeah.
while others are at home, like we can choose to just think about ourselves, but when we really think about community, we think about our community that are suffering, then we want to be selfless. And so listening to God's call, I have chosen that response, to be selfless, instead of thinking about myself, because of course these guys, they made me happy, but it did not fulfill me, because I needed to feel that love where I, in return, want to give away the love as well.
Well, many of the girls I used to date became nuns when they found out they couldn't have me because it was like, they just what else? What other choice? I drove many into the convent here. I know I
So
did.
that's the secret. So,
Right.
with vocation, you're wondering, that's how you do it. break their hearts so they will come and enter the college.
You are such a happy nun. I'm so happy to hear that there's still some of you out there willing to put others first here. And I think Dr. Tran, he laughs and jokes, but he does a lot of mission work and sees what
Yeah,
he does as
that's
a
what we
calling.
have in common. Dr. Tran and I, we did not know each other, but I do mission trips. I take the students from Loyola Marymount University to Vietnam, and we would do mission trip. We stay with the indigenous people up in the high mountains. And then I also accompany our doctors and nurses within our health system. Actually, they work with our health system, but other doctors as well from other health systems, and we do medical mission. So
The one question, and this could be a show into itself, but I saw this when my mother. I'm an only child, so when my mother and father died separately over a long period of time, there was nobody kind of there. Yes, I have a wife and other kids, but there was no other sibling. It was my responsibility, it was my duty, and I took care of them, and I got involved. And what I realized is when you take faith out of that end of life prospect, it's a difficult journey anyway. But and why is it that in America we can't even use the word death anymore? You pass away. We lost him. Where did he go? Well, I don't know. We lost him along the way here. We have banished. We're such a feel-good, positive, always be upbeat, and we're perennially young, and we're never going to get old, and we're never going to. We've banished the word death from our conversation. We don't have funerals anymore. We just have celebration of life. It's over in 5 minutes. We don't mourn more than 5 minutes. We don't hold anybody's hand when they pass away anymore because we don't want to be there. That's why we have hospice and other things. Go take care of them and call me, and I'll cry for 5 minutes. Why we seem to have lost any ability to deal with the one thing we know is going to happen to all of us.
I think we are denying the truth.
Yeah, right.
Because and that's denying the person at the end of life to accompany with them in such a sacred way. I think it's a missed opportunity when we're denying that journey because we just want to focus on happiness.
Right.
But when somebody is suffering, it's that empathy. How are we accompanying them? How are we journeying with them? How are we present to them? And denying that's what's going to be a hole for them. And that's why I say a good death is so important because it's the whole package.
Yeah.
How do we accompany others in their suffering?
I was there when my mother's sister, who never got married, she became sort of my surrogate mother, and I was there at the end and held her hand as she passed away. And at first I thought, this is just going to be horrendous. And it really was, in a weird way. It was actually very beautiful. It was very peaceful. It was very, and to be there through that process. And it sort of reminded me when my grandson was born. I was there when he was born. I was there the beginning and end of life. Here's a woman that was there when I was born. And to honor that, and to nobody wants to die alone, but I'll tell you a funny story real quick. When we ran out there, I ran out there. She was in Palm Springs, and I had put her in a assisted living facility. And I got the word, we call her every day and go out and see her as much every week. And when I finally got the word, this is it, she's going, hopped in my car, headed out there. And I showed up just in time, about 20 minutes before she died. And they all looked at me and said, why are you here? Is this your mother? I said, no, this is my aunt. Why are you here? Well, she's dying. Well, that's what we're here for. We take care of them, and we'll tell you when it's over, and we'll dispose of the body, and you can have a little service. And I said, that's what people do these days? That's horrible.
And I want the people to think about this, because this is what I say to people at the end of life, especially to their families. When there's a newborn entering into the world, we're all excited.
Yes, and we're all there.
We're all there. And at the end of life, we have to trust the angels and saints and those that have passed on are surrounding them at this moment. And we want to accompany them. And at the very last day, you don't want to regret that you are there with them as they're being surrounded with all the saints and angels and their loved ones. And then you're accompanying them just as a birth, and they're entering into a new birth. And that's the journey that I want people, and for me, is surrounding them with love until the very end.
Yeah.
Because no regret. That the last image that we have of them is that we surrounded them with our love.
We think it's something we can't face, and so we put it off and we deny it, and we create hospitals remove dead people in the middle of the night, quietly. The bodies are immediately cremated, so nobody has to see this horrible specter. We don't have open caskets or grave site burials anymore here. They just say he's gone, and you say,
Do you know in Vietnam, Sister Agnes?
No.
Okay, we stay at her convent a few times when we do our medical missions work. Okay, I'm just curious.
well, I would love to. I'm sorry to be on the downer thing here. Everybody's tuning out. So, don't talk about death and dying. But I think that's, again, where science ends, faith picks up. And I would love to do a show sometime on that topic about end-of-life care, end-of-life procedure, because I think that's just something we don't talk about or deal with or we're prepared for. And then it comes, and it's horrible, and we can't handle it. And we avoid it. We don't have funerals. We don't sit with the dead. We don't hold their hand as they go. We don't do any of that anymore here.
Let's do that.
Let's do that. Yeah, end of life. Because it's about having a good life is about having a good death. I believe that. You don't want to die alone. You don't want to die forgotten. You want it to mean something. You want to say everything you want to say.
But faith shouldn't be at the end of life.
Well,
faith should be throughout the entire process of life.
Too many of it. We're scrambling for it in the last 5 minutes here or something. I'll give you, and again, kind of a funny story, a touching story, but it's sort of the same thing. So my aunt was from the Midwest. She's a good Midwestern woman. She never said, I love you to anybody. We all knew she loved us, but she never said it. Do I have to say it? That's uncomfortable. I don't want to. We talked about this once before. A lot of cultures, it's uncomfortable to say I love you. So I'm sitting there with my wife, and my aunt's, we think, in a coma. She hasn't talked all day. I'm there. She's passing away. And I'm tears in my eyes, look at my wife. I say, it would have been nice to hear her say once in her life, I love you. I knew she loved me, but I never heard. Now, I'm just talking next to her as if she's already dead. I'm thinking, she's in a coma. And she hadn't talked all day. And all of a sudden she starts mumbling, and I'm like, oh my God, she's speaking. What is it? And I lean in, she says, I love you. And those are the last words she spoke on earth. I get choked up, like, oh my God, but I had to wait the last second. It's like a movie.
And so, like what you said, the whole entire life, she never said, I love you.
Right,
until that very second. And that's what I want people to remember, the faith journey, that sometimes it takes until the very last minute, that very last second. You never know the intention, and kind of trust that.
Yeah, right. All right, take us out. Give us some kind of blessing here. I need a little help today here. Maybe people aren't ready for it. But
I will bless you, Dr. Tran, and all of our viewers, and all of those that are going to listen to us later. So, dear Lord, we ask you to be present with us, and you surround each of our viewers, Dr. Tran, Paul, at this moment. May they know that you are with them, accompanying with them, and may you continue to keep them safe and protect them, watch over them. Please continue to protect our community, watch over our community, keep us safe, and watch over our families during this time. It's such a stressful time. May you continue to help us to be healthy, take care of each other, and remember that you are with us, you are accompanying with us, you are by our side, and may we trust that you are with us every step of the way. May you heal us in body, mind, and spirit. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. What a joy to talk to such a joyful nun here today. I never think of nuns and religious as having anything to do with health and science here, but there's a connection here.
Thanks for being with us. I still didn't have a chance to do any nun jokes.
Yeah, well, we'll build those up for next. I want to come back though and talk about end of life, because I think that's a big topic nobody talks about, and we're not prepared for here.
We will.
Okay, thanks so much. You've been listening to another great example of why you should tune in each and every week, maybe for a little hope, a little inspiration, a few ideas on how to handle the craziness that surrounds us these days here. Right here in Orange County's only community radio station, octalkradio.net.
She's awesome.
She is. What a joy. Yeah, to find. I would like to have her come back and talk sometime about the end of life, because I think
Do it.
that's a hot topic for me, having gone through it a couple times with mom and
Oh,
dad,
very
and
hot.
nobody wants to deal with it. Nobody wants to hear about it, plan for it, focus on it. Just make it disappear.